Once in a while, a story comes along that gives me a glimmer of hope. This isn't one of them, because we just found out that J.D. Vance ordered a river's water level raised for his family boat trip on his birthday. So what happened? Apparently, J.D. Vance wanted to go boating for his birthday, so his team requested that the Army Corps of Engineers temporarily increase the outflow from a nearby lake to the river in what's called a special release. Well, of course, on your birthday, who doesn't want a special release?
Quiet Riot. Hello, and welcome to Quiet Riot Sunday School, the acorn to our Thursday oak tree. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I'm Naomi.
And I'm Alex.
How are you?
Yeah, it's been a productive, busy week. Been doing loads of gardening and loads of podyssey and loads of Quiet Riot and loads of admin and loads of putting records back in order, because I've had quite a lot of
That's very satisfying, that kind of idea. Love it.
Because, I have like a new arrivals tub where I throw things that I get, and then once every couple of years I put them in the right order, because I have to shift everying around to make space. It's quite a big...
Well, I have spent most of today laughing at Rupert Lowe, which has been the most joyous end to the week.
What a prick.
Listeners who aren't familiar, Great Yarmouth MP Rupert Lowe got in a right old tiswas because a small boat was spotted off the coast of Great Yarmouth. And he reported it to the authorities because, of course, he assumed, illegal immigrants trying to land in Great Yarmouth. Except, of course, it wasn't, was it, Alex?
No, it was a British rowing team attempting to go from Land's End to Joan Groats for a motor neuron disease charity. And his message, his post on social media on Thursday evening was so hysterical.
It was.
It had a photo of the boat from a distance, and it read, "Dinghies coming into Great Yarmouth right now in capitals. Authorities alerted, and I'm urgently chasing. If these are illegal immigrants, I will be using every tool at my disposal to ensure these individuals are deported."
I think he also called for mass deportations at the same time.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's a good thing he didn't have a bazooka with him.
Yeah. Well, apparently when the rowing team got wind of Lowe's antics, they said that the best comment was the one asking where the Royal Navy were when you need them. Well, one of the rowers said, "I'm a former Royal Marine." So the Royal Navy were literally on the boat.
And as I understand it, they found out when the Coast Guard contacted them and told them to keep a watch for an inflatable,
right,
with undocumented migrants about to cross, because they were in the same area,
and they were like, "No, that's us."
Yeah, and they slowly tweaked that was actually them. Oh, it's just delicious, isn't it? They really are the modern equivalent of curtain twitchers.
Exactly. All proving once again that the real danger to us is not small boats, but very teeny tiny minds. And I can see the next headline coming soon, like, "Rupert Lowe tries to deport a canoe."
Rupert Lowe chases bit of driftwood up the coast.
Now, to every gorgeous person tuning in, please do go and sign up at ko-fi.com/Quiet Riot Pod if you can, to help us grow the show. Supporters get access to our Discord channel, our live editorial, and Ask Us Anything shows. And supporting us helps Kenny, Alex, and I to produce a show for everybody, including those who can't afford to pay. And it also keeps Kenny in deep fried iron brew.
Now, with another heat wave on the way, make sure you're also stocked up with plenty of reading material to consume on your sun lounger by visiting our bookshop. We'll leave a link for that in the show notes.
All right, Alex, let's get cracking. Can we start with deconstructing the J.D. Vance visit? Maybe with a side dish of Trump and Putin to add to the indigestion.
if you insist. And speaking of wading through effluent, I spotted Best for Britain have been busy publishing a new bit of research on the UK's waterways. So I want to grill you on all of that because I've been very busy with policy and not keeping an eye on the news. I really need to know where it's safe to skinny dip next week.
In Greece, Alex, in Greece. That's the headline. Like, nowhere in England is safe for a skinny
Mainly
dip.
because Rupert Lowe might be on
Yeah,
a
exactly.
nearby hill with his binoculars. Mistake me for an inflatable.
Great white spotted.
Now, for dessert, can I pick your vegan brain on culinary nationalism? Apropos of the Italian government complaining to the UK ambassador about a good food pasta recipe. I will explain more later.
Well, hopefully our appetites will have returned by then. But for now, I'm going to have to swallow the bile and get stuck in on Vance. Quiet riot. Vance, who once denounced Trump before becoming one of his closest political allies, now occupies one of the most powerful positions in the world. His visit to the UK is being framed by Downing Street as an essential diplomatic engagement, though it is hard to ignore the political whiplash of such a progressive Labour Foreign Secretary as David Lammy playing host to a man who's advocated everything from mass deportations to cutting off aid to Ukraine. Behind the scenes, sources say Vance's visit will focus on transatlantic trade, defence cooperation, and the future of US-UK relations. Now, as well as staying at Lammy's Grace and Favour Chevening Pile, Vance, his wife Usha, and their kids are going to be making a trip to where else but the Cotswolds, and Vance is going to be visiting some US troops too. Vance has championed such an America first foreign policy as we've ever seen. And he even called Starmer's victory at the election last year as meaning Britain was maybe the first truly Islamist country with a nuclear deterrent. Let's have a listen.
Of other countries. By the way, I have to beat up on the UK. Just one additional thing. I was talking with a friend recently, and we were talking about, one of the big dangers in the world, of course, is nuclear proliferation, though, of course, the Biden administration doesn't care about it. And I was talking about, what is the first truly Islamist country that will get a nuclear weapon? And we were like, maybe it's Iran, maybe Pakistan already kind of counts. And then we sort of finally decided maybe it's actually the UK, since Labour just took over.
He also attacked the UK for undermining freedom of speech and placing basic liberties of religious Britons in the crosshairs. I am assuming he doesn't mean those of a Muslim faith, but a Christian one. And Lammy, of course, once called Trump a far-right extremist and a neo-Nazi, but since coming to power has distanced himself somewhat from those words as being, quote, old news. So, Alex, in terms of political values, Lammy and Vance are largely antithetical to one another, it is fair to say, but they do share other values, like notably their faith, and they're alleged to have bonded over their difficult upbringings. So I wanted to ask you if you think that kind of stuff helps move the needle on shared foreign policy aims, or does it just make afternoon tea at Chevening slightly less unbearable?
I think it helps. They're effectively doing similar jobs. And I think that's another point of contact, isn't it? Imagine a journalist from the Telegraph going out for a beer with a journalist at The Guardian. They have quite a lot in common, actually, just by virtue of having to do the international circuit and, live out of a suitcase with their families and the public attention that they have on them, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it does help. It also kind of reaffirms this idea that they're a sort of elite, right?
Yeah.
Because it also means that it smooths out their actual political and ideological differences. Lammy also attended a mass at the vice president's Washington residence during a visit in March. And they also met in Rome in May for Pope Leo the 14th inaugural mass. I guess Lammy has been trying to fashion the meetings around the thing that they have in common, which is quite smart, really, in diplomatic terms. Having said that, I don't expect that they will see eye to eye on quite a lot of issues.
And I think most of us are going to be hoping, of course, that Lammy will push him on two key fronts, chiefly getting a lot more support to Ukraine and to accelerate efforts to bring the humanitarian crisis in Gaza to an end. But are these kinds of visits, which are kind of part holiday, part official, set up for deep negotiations like that? Or do we think it's more of an oiling of the cogs over tea and crumpets before then, it is Trump and Starmer and others that get stuff over the line?
I mean, normally I would say the latter, especially because the position of vice president has been seen in the past as not very influential, not as influential as the name implies, right?
We didn't talk about Harris anywhere near as much as we've had to talk about Vance.
Yeah, or Pence,
Yeah.
until he became a sort of key figure at that transitional stage. I remember really quite vividly the State Department secretary being considered really the second most powerful
Yeah.
person. But Vance is different. He's a much more state center power broker figure, I think. He is reputed to have been meeting with senior officials this week on how to deal with the Epstein issue. We've seen him actively intervene in various meetings. To be honest, I cannot even remember VPs attending those sorts of heads of state meetings in the Oval
No.
Office in the past. I don't remember them even being there for the photo opportunity. It's actually quite unusual to have the president and vice president together so much of the time.
Well, exactly, because
especially in foreign visits for security reasons.
That alone, but also just the sheer workload, it's a handy way to carve up everything that needs doing.
This administration is also not typical in the sense that you say, is this designed for deep negotiations? Well, they don't really do deep negotiations. They do handshake deals, at the golf club bar. So it feels that for all those reasons, this is different to what it might have been in the past. Vance seems to me really visibly, palpably to be Trump's minder. Like, he is the link with the Project 2025 people and that pile of money. He has actively fashioned himself as the heir to Trumpism from day one. I don't think there is anyone that
from 2017.
But there's like nobody that doubts that Vance will go for the nomination after Trump leaves it. Which has always been a likelihood, but certainly a question in the past. I suspect this meeting is much more meaningful than such meetings on past occasions. I mean, scary side note, as we're talking about it, would Vance certify the results of the 2028 election that Trump potentially lost, like Pence did?
Good question.
Isn't it?
Good question. Yeah. We shall have to ask our American friends next time they're on the show what they conclude on that one. Getting back to Ukraine, I mean, Vance has previously been such a leading voice in pushing for pullback on Ukraine aid, often invoking the cost to the American taxpayer, the need to focus on domestic issues. But his rhetoric has cooled recently, I suspect in response to the latest diplomatic push and Trump's pivots and Daddy getting increasingly frustrated by Putin. Yeah, exactly. What do we know about the US's current position on the conflict? I mean, at the time of recording, I understand that Kremlin and White House are still trying to broker some kind of meeting between the two.
Trump has been expressing much more vociferous and overt frustration with Putin recently.
Where does that stem from?
Quite a lot of things. I mean, we've said it before, Trump is quite transactional. And he's offered what he reckons is a good deal and just doesn't understand why someone wouldn't be taking it. And he doesn't get that Putin is actually not just transactional. He's an ideologue. He's a dictator. He has a vision for a great Russia. And Trump just doesn't get that. If someone offered him X amount of money to sort of stop attacking a country, he wouldn't think twice about it. Putin has not delivered him anything that he could dress up as a win politically. And there's been a bit of relish in that. One sense is that Putin has enjoyed making Trump look like a fool, right? And making himself look like the top dog. And Trump is not going to like that. He's going to resent that in his bones. And also Russia is sort of associating itself more with China and Iran, which again Trump doesn't like. Plus, public opinion at home has shifted.
Quiet Riot. Now, this episode is sponsored by Shopify.
Why Shopify? Well, when we started Quiet Riot, there was so much we had to figure out on our own. Even though we'd both got plenty of experience appearing on podcasts, starting our own from scratch threw up a lot of challenges, from finding studios and designing logos to wrestling with contracts and dealing with platforms.
And on a show like this, the to-do list, I can assure you, is never, ever done, and getting help is essential. Otherwise, the process of creating the show can drain the joy of putting out a podcast that we are so proud of.
For some challenges, that means reaching out to friends who can point us in the right direction, hopefully with a smile and an encouraging pat on the back. But for others, you just need the right tool for a particular job.
For millions of businesses, one of those tools is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, from household names like Mattel and Gymshark to brands like ours just getting started. As we're developing our thinking about Quiet Riot branded merchandise, Shopify was the first name that came to mind to manage the whole process for us.
It's straightforward enough to get started with your own design studio. With hundreds of ready-to-use templates, Shopify can help you build a beautiful online store to match your brand's style.
It can accelerate your content creation too. Shopify is packed with helpful tools that help you write product descriptions, page headlines, and even enhance your product photography.
Plus, you can get the word out like you have a marketing team behind you. It's easy to create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are, scrolling or strolling.
Best of all, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from managing inventory to international shipping to processing returns and more. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify.
So turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your £1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.co.uk/quietriot. Go to shopify.co.uk/quietriot. That's shopify.co.uk/quietriot.
Quiet Riot. Given Trump's family associations, wives and their families that will have such a better understanding of the Russian mindset and the politics of that region because of where they were born and raised in bordering countries to Russia, that they wouldn't have somehow tried to impress upon him that, look, you are not dealing with a transactional capitalist here. You're dealing with a totalitarian oligarch who harks after, the age of empire for Russia and to get back to, Soviet glory.
Well, he sort of let slip that Melania did. That she took the mickey out of him one day when he went back home and he said, I think I had a nice talk with Vladimir and I think we've got an understanding. And she went, oh, really? Because he just bombed another town. Yeah. So even if that is apocryphal, there will be a grain of truth in it.
Vance was the main instigator, remember, of that really horrific scene the entire world witnessed during that Zelensky visit to the White House. He's really clearly a nasty bully. Let's have a quick reminder listen.
He broken this ceasefire. He killed our people and he didn't exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I have been to.
Count one.
I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people into your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions.
Now, Alex, of course, the UK has to engage in diplomacy with the USA. They do. I mean, that is a given. But is there a risk that these visits really normalize the abnormal? We are watching liberal democracies roll out the red carpet for someone who questions democracy itself. And therefore, yes, of course, there will be short-term gain in maintaining diplomatic ties. But could the long-term cost be that we're legitimizing policies and people that we should never really want to be normalized?
I mean, for sure, that risk exists. But it's a really difficult tightrope to walk, you know. The US is not Libya, it's not Myanmar. We can't even fully condemn Israel, for God's sake, because for decades we have outsourced all intel in that entire region to cooperation agreements with Mossad. So, I mean, as frustrating as it is, I do not see any scenario where it is sensible to even attempt to turn the US into a pariah state. And if you can't do that, then being the sort of Trump whisperer is a much less dignified, but actually more sensible position, because you keep some influence, you keep some of the crazier stuff maybe from happening. It's a tough one. It's a really, really tough one. And, you know, anyone that has read in a sort of open-minded way about the Iraq situation under Tony Blair will know that part of the reason that the UK went in with the US was because there was a sense that the US is going to go in anyway, because there's this huge anger and outrage about 9/11. So we need to be in there to kind of, you know, keep it vaguely sober and with its ties straight. It's horrible, but it's what it is, I'm afraid.
Yeah. I mean, this is being billed as Vance's vacay, like his summer one. But if we cast our minds back to earlier this year, his winter vacay didn't turn out so good. He went to Vermont with the family and was disturbed by throngs of protesters, angered mostly by the administration's anti-immigration policies and handling of the Ukraine crisis. Now, of course, there is plenty of preparation being made by those who are going to protest Trump's second state visit later this year. But will anyone be bothered enough to demonstrate against his arrival in the Cotswolds?
I mean, there's some talk about a sort of coalition of demonstrators and climate activists and trade unions and pro-Palestinian groups. He's such a small figure, actually.
Yeah.
He's such a nothing. I fail to get fired up about you.
Lock up your sofas.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I hope there is something, because, you know, he has such big reservations about freedom of speech in the UK. Let's put his mind at ease, right?
Oh, man, let's get out there. What are you doing tomorrow, Alex? We could get the train to Stow-on-the-Wold or wherever he is. All right, then you've touched on this earlier in terms of seeing himself very much as Trump heir. And let's face it, he's young-ish by political standards, incredibly ambitious, and he's not daft. And Trump's not getting any younger or healthier. It might be he becomes POTUS by virtue of something happening to Trump during this term. So could this visit be as much about helping Vance's political standing back home as it is about agreeing joint foreign policy with its UK allies?
Yeah, maybe. I hope it is, because I think he's hopeless. Chinless Nazi Care Bear. He just doesn't have it, whatever it is. You know, he's got
the
shark
thing that Trump
eyes.
does have.
He just does. He's a charisma black hole. He doesn't have the X factor at all. He's the American Robert Jenrick, is what he is.
He has also got a really short temper.
Yeah, but he's also a bit weird, and those two things combined just make him uncomfortable to even look at. He's unlikable. He's unrelatable.
Maybe the Dems should have held back the weird attack messaging for next time round, because it does land more authentically when you're leveling it at him. I mean, come on, Trump is fucking weird, yeah, for sure. But you're right, there is, I think, in the eyes of the average American, something a little bit more sinister about Vance than Trump.
Do you know, I don't think it's even that, because actually we see it in Vance's sort of approval ratings. They only improve when he's firmly inside the glow of Trump.
Right.
The moment he's a little bit outside it, if he kind of disagrees on anything, or when he was first picked, his approval ratings were under the ocean floor, not just underwater. Trump is, for his followers, I mean, we find him horrific, but for his
But he's
followers,
messianic to them.
he's fun. He's fun to watch, And Vance is anything but. He is the opposite of fun. He's not even seriousness. He's what you get if you go from fun through seriousness and out the other end to a sort of anti-fun. He's not an idiot. He's not incompetent. I don't think that's his problem. I don't think establishing seriousness is what he lacks. I think it's the opposite. But what do I know? I'm plainly not the target audience.
We've got our own prime minister who most people would not describe as fun.
No, and he's not. I'm glad he's meeting with Lammy, because I don't know what happens if Vance and Starmer end up meeting in the same room. Possibly, I don't know, there's an expanding radius within which comedy melts. I don't know what happens.
If you've shopped online, chances are you've bought from a business powered by Shopify. You know that purple Shop Pay button you see at checkout? The one that makes buying so incredibly easy? That's Shopify. And there's a reason so many businesses sell with it, because Shopify makes it incredibly easy to start and run your business. Shopify is the commerce platform behind 10% of all e-commerce in the US. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/promo. Go to shopify.com/promo.
One activity Vance probably shouldn't let his kids do on their visit to the UK is go for a paddle in our waters, because unless you've taken up wild swimming as an extreme sport or just enjoy following a dip with a penicillin picnic, you might not be surprised by our next story. New research by Best for Britain has revealed that swimming waters in England are 5 times more likely to be polluted than those in the EU. That's not just a bit worse. Red and yellow flags don't cover this scenario. We need a new brown flag to be added to the range. The report finds that over 40% of monitored bathing sites in England fail to meet even the EU's minimum water quality standards. By comparison, across the entire EU, that figure is under 8%. So while Europeans are diving into crystal clear lakes and seas, we're paddling through chemical soup and raw sewage. It's not just embarrassing, it's not just costly to our health, to our tourism industry, to our international reputation. It also raises big questions about the kind of post-Brexit Britain, the environmental standards we're prepared to accept, and why the government isn't doing more to clean up this mess. So, Naomi, I had a skim of the report. It's pretty damning. How did we get here, and why is England especially performing so much worse than the EU on water quality?
So I've got a tote bag that I bought in 2016 with Brexit written on it, because I thought that was funny. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a self-fulfilling bag of absolute raging turds. It's unbelievable that we've got to this stage. And it is the result of political choice, right?
Just
Since
say what you
Brexit-
think now. Just say what you think now. Don't hold back.
Okay, but this is about political choice, okay? So since Brexit, we've seen a loosening of standards and near total regulatory failure. And you're right to mention England, because we broke the UK down into Northern Ireland, Scotland, England, and Wales to do the work. And take this statistic, Alex. 5 times the rate of England's bathing waters compared to the EU's are poor. And it's not that the UK can't do better, because when we look at Northern Ireland, it recorded no officially polluted sites in 2024. Same country, but very different governance and priorities over upholding the standards. So it's not that we've sort of deregulated. We're just not enforcing at
Mm.
all the regulations that we've got. And it's completely embarrassing for us. It's dangerous for us. And I just find it maddening that, we haven't nationalized the water companies, and those that are guilty of all of this slapped with enormous fines. But
Mm.
yeah, be careful where you swim.
Yeah, Rupert, since you're down at the beach all the time, why not take a net with you? Um, fish out a few plops. Some ministers argue the counterpoint is that the UK still has strong environmental
Yeah, yeah.
protections. I mean, is that true? Have they relaxed the actual regulation
No,
since Brexit? No.
no, but it is clearly not true, because in 2024, England had 18 officially polluted swimming sites, 5 times more than the EU average. Northern Ireland had 0, Scotland had 1. And the key difference is political will and enforcement. The
Hmm.
EU countries have to meet strict legal standards. They do enforce them, but we've moved to this sort of light touch approach, and the result is we've polluted our waterways.
Hmm. I guess it costs money
It does, but
to monitor and enforce this stuff.
then that is to know the cost of stuff and not the value. When we
Oh,
look at
I
the
agree. I agree.
yeah,
I am completely on board,
I sit on the board of a brilliant charity called the Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents. And basically, all of the funding for educating people about the dangers of going into the water has been scrapped. But they've maintained you fucking hope, the funding to go and rescue people when they get into trouble. So
Hmm.
if you're already in trouble, we'll help you out, but we'll do very little to stop you getting in a dangerous situation in the water in the first place.
Are we talking minor nuisance here, or are we talking serious health risk? Are we now in that area?
Speak to anybody that does wild swimming, speak to Surfers Against Sewage, all of these groups, whether it is the Women's Institute, sort of wading into political territory in a way they generally never ever do. They will tell you we are talking about serious health risk. So environmental monitoring groups saying you've got 400,000 sewage spills in England in 2023 alone, and that is communities swimming, fishing, playing in contaminated water. When you have a health impact like that, you will be damaging the local economy. You will have beach closures, you will have people cancelling events, you will have rowing teams and swimming teams and
Hmm.
canoeing societies all taking a view on whether to go ahead or not with an event based on the amount of bacteria found in water samples that they are now having to do before going ahead with these kinds of events. And then you've got, loss of tourism income in seaside towns, all of that layered on top. So yes, serious health risk, but it doesn't end there. You then go on to have the financial cost of it all as well.
I do a lot of sort of spearfishing and things like that when I'm in Greece. And even, on an island like Mykonos, for a couple of decades, there was one particular spot where everyone local knew that the hotels in that area were up to no good,
Right.
because you could see the impact in the sort of biodiversity in that area
Yes.
underwater. You could quite literally, really quickly, you could see where the zone started, where stuff was flowing out. It was completely plain, and suddenly
Yeah.
you were in a sort of underwater desert. And when they were fined and they were stopped from doing this, the recovery was just as miraculous and just as quick. Like within a couple of years, the area was unrecognizable. The sea, the ocean floor underneath there was unrecognizable, and it was actually really blossoming.
And anytime I ever post anything about this on social media, my comments get filled up with people saying, "Oh yes, me, my children, whatever, have had vomiting and diarrhea after the
Ugh.
last, 4 times we've dared to go anywhere near, open water swimming or canoeing or whatever it is we do." All people that have frequented the water regularly will tell you that they've suffered.
Yeah, and I think it's particularly bad in a country like the UK, because I think, standards in other areas are quite high, like, the monitoring of food in restaurants and hygiene, and, there's all sorts of stuff in the
Council
water.
swimming pools tend to be very well chlorinated.
Yeah, and that means that most people don't have a sort of cast iron stomach. Exactly. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? They're quite
Yeah.
susceptible, which is why I think so many people,
Get very
specifically
ill.
from very sort of hygiene conscious, quite sanitized Western countries have so much trouble if they go traveling in certain parts of the
Bali
world.
belly and Delhi
Yeah.
belly and things. Yeah, yeah.
Are there any signs that this government is taking the problem seriously, or that we could encourage it to take the problem seriously?
Well, there are certainly figures in Parliament taking it incredibly seriously, and Kenny interviewed Clive Lewis MP for a Quiet Riot special a couple of months ago.
Oh, yeah. Actually, we'll drop a link. It was a really good conversation on this.
It was, and he's doing some stellar work on it. And of course, the Lib Dems and the Greens have been making huge noise about it because it is an issue that spans all voting preferences. Nobody wants this. We are an island nation. We like to go to the seaside and swim in our rivers and lakes and fish and enjoy all of the benefits of being an island. And so it doesn't really matter whether you're a Labour, Tory, Reform, Green, SNP, whatever, you're angry about this. Government, less so. They say they're acting, but the numbers don't stack up and say very much otherwise. Raw sewage was discharged into English waters for more than 3.6 million hours in 2023. So that isn't just regulatory failure. That is a political decision to look the other way. And meanwhile, Northern Ireland manages to keep its swimming spots relatively clean. And if other parts of the UK can do it, why can't England? And voters are right to be angry. And frankly, it's the only thing that seems to make this government budge is when they get angry. So call to action, read the report, send it to your MP, keep making waves.
Yeah, we'll drop a link to the report in the show notes. And, MPs are sometimes isolated from these issues because maybe they're in a constituency where this isn't a live issue, so they may not have even seen the report. So make sure you write to your MP and attach the report and send it, because it really does make a difference.
Quiet Riot. As a sports fan, I have to confess, sometimes the game gets kind of boring. That's when I unfold my Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 and use multi-window viewing on its large screen. Boring game? I'm checking out my fantasy baseball league at the same time. Score still 1-0? I'm replying to emails in the other window, scoring points with the boss. Semifinals finally getting exciting? I'm buying tickets to the finals and booking my flights. Can your phone do that?
The new Galaxy Z Fold 7. Get yours at Samsung.com.
I am afraid, Signor Marco.
Do not be afraid of the pepper, Carlo. The pepper is your friend. All right? Look, I see a salad. You go, you take the pepper.
No.
You take the pepper, Carlo. Take the pepper. Take the pepper.
Mamma mia. Furore per la pasta. Italians are incandescent with the UK Good Food website for publishing a recipe for the traditional Roman dish, cacio e pepe, that did not include the correct original ingredients. President of the Italian Restaurants Trade Body has sent furious letters to Immediate Media, who own the Good Food website, and to the UK ambassador, Edward Llewellyn. Come on then, Alex. What is this whole controversy all about?
So the right ingredients, if there is such a thing, we'll talk about it in a minute, are meant to be pasta, pepper, and pecorino cheese. But the Good Food website recommended 4 ingredients instead of the 3 traditional ones, including spaghetti, pepper, parmesan, and butter. And it even had the temerity to suggest that you might want to add a splash of cream. To which the Italians said, vai cagare alla mare. And judging from the Best for Britain report, we have been. Do you know what that curse means in Italian?
Something about the sea.
Go shit in the sea. Is this performative pearl clutching in Italian, Naomi?
Poccette di perle performante. Use my Italian accent, by the way. I speak Spanish a bit, so I find Italian trickier.
Poccette. Anytime you see an H after a C in Italian, it's a K.
Poccette di perle performante.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, we have talked about rules of origin on many a podcast over the years, Alex.
Yeah, rules of origin are different, though, aren't they?
They are different. We've talked about, recognizing when balsamic vinegar has to have come from a certain region, champagne can only come from Champagne, all that kind of stuff. But this is taking it really quite another step further, isn't it? I mean, look, pecorino is actually fucking hard to find in UK supermarkets. And so I guess Parmesan with a bit of cream is an attempt to try and recreate the consistency and flavor of pecorino, no?
I would say that the top note of Parmesan is salty and the top note of pecorino is peppery. So I guess if the idea of the dish is peppery, then pecorino makes more sense. But most people would not really understand or know that difference. I am more sympathetic on the cream thing, which does seem like a bit of an abomination. In the sense that cacio e pepe is, its primary characteristic is that it's a sort of naked pasta. There is something in my heart that wants to protect dishes that have very few ingredients from complication, because the idea is that look what I can do with just these 3 things. So when you make the 3 things 6 things, it alters something quite fundamental about the character of the dish, which is about the simplicity. In general terms, do you understand this need of countries or regions to sort of, we're not talking about protected produce here, but to own recipes, to say our recipe is the only one that is the right recipe. I mean, as a cook, do you follow recipes or do you tend to improvise? I really don't know.
I totally improvise,
Right, yeah.
and being vegan.
So it's like, what have I got?
Right, but I guess, so I'm putting myself in their shoes. For them, it's about what you're calling it. It's not what you're choosing to eat. So if we were to take a traditional British recipe, I don't know, like toad in the hole, where you've got flour, eggs, milk, and sausages, and you were to then say, okay, if I use bread, water, and chicken and call it toad in the hole, would English people go, that ain't fucking toad in the hole? Like, yeah, they would.
Yeah.
But
that's a rather extreme example.
That is an extreme example, and
like if you used vegan sausages, you would still call it toad in the hole?
Of course. And there is this hilarious story from about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago, when Sainsbury's brought out a new range of vegan cheese, and a woman went absolutely mad and did a furious tirade that got turned into a viral joke online. But she was saying, call it Gary or something, just don't call it cheese because it's not cheese. And the vegan community responded in style, and with hours, was flooding social media with jokes and memes, particularly on the new It's Not Vegan Cheese, this Gary Facebook page. And then the supermarket itself lent into it and posted an altered image of the dairy-free cheese, with changing the whole packaging into Gary, using the same font and everything. Thanks to customer feedback, we're excited to introduce our new range of #Gary. And I know some vegans that still today say, oh, do you want some Gary on your pasta?
Yeah.
I don't give a shit what you call it, really. And as a vegan, I do get it a lot. Like, oh, you can't call it that because it's not got meat in it. No. So, ridiculous, really. But as a Greek, you have many beautiful, simple Mediterranean dishes, and you said it yourself. The need to protect and celebrate the brilliance of the local produce that goes into making a dish thing, with full intervention really from the human hand. Do all Mediterraneans get sort of upset about this kind of thing, or is it?
I don't, and I am vehemently and vociferously against those who do, because I think actually it's much more to do with having a very conservative palate, which I think actually Mediterraneans do have a very conservative palate, not in terms of the food they eat, but in terms of the food they're accustomed to. It can't be a millimeter away from what their mother used to make, basically, which is quite difficult because every mother makes a dish differently. And every single Greek, Italian, and Spanish person thinks their mother's recipe is the only one that is original and authentic.
What was your mum's favorite? What was your favorite recipe that your mum used to make?
Oh, mum was also quite irreverent, because her father used to work as a chef for the officers at the mess hall. So he was trained as a French chef, I guess, and so mum had always quite foreign influences in her cooking, and she wasn't afraid to mix it up and actually fight for it. Sort of go, no, this is better. And she ended up being a bit of a hub where people used to come and say, how do you make this crispier than I've had? Or how do you make this less oily than I've had, or lighter than I've had? And so I'm not like that at all. I actually really, it annoys me. Like I got in massive trouble over putting onion in a tortilla. Because I said it,
with whom?
with all the Spanish people in my feed, because I called it a tortilla de patatas, and everyone was like, "No, a tortilla de patatas is just potato and egg, and salt, and maybe a pinch of white pepper. You can't have anything else in there, and also you overcooked it. It needs to be very pale. You can't have it. You can't have it browning at all."
Oh, the food police.
And and I asked a lot of Spanish people, and they said actually loads of regions in Spain put onion in it. It's just the sort of the madrileños that think they own this recipe, and they tell off Spanish people for putting things in there that they think don't belong in there. I mean, this goes back a long way, right?
Yeah.
There is a remnant of a sort of early food critic thing from like 2nd century BC of someone in Sicily. Sicily was Greek at that time. Remember, it was a sort of Greek colony. So a Greek in Sicily was criticizing the Italians in the mainland for combining cheese with seafood. And it's now an obsession, actually, of Italians that cheese must never go together with seafood. And and this has actually rational roots, because before you had pasteurization and refrigeration, each area was kind of limited to the stuff that it produced near it. And so sending fish inland to regions
not a great idea.
that it wasn't a good combination. Basically, it was a dangerous combination.
And so much kosher food is actually centered around a time when it was dangerous to eat shellfish.
The shellfish
they don't or pork or whatever, undercooked pork make you very ill. Don't eat it. Easiest way to teach people that is to say it's a godly commandment.
But if you look at it rationally, right, the things Italians get really het up about as, being rooted in tradition. I mean, if you look at Mediterranean cuisine, right, tomatoes were basically not eaten until the 17th century.
Yep.
They were around the Mediterranean for a century before that, but it was as a decorative plant because it's in the nightshade family, and so people considered it quite dangerous. And so the very first recipe for a tomato sauce appears in a 1692 book, Lo Scalco alla Moderna, by Antonio Latini, who was...
in the Moderna there.
Yeah, exactly. And he was chef to a Spanish sort of noble in Napoli. And he included a tomato recipe that he called alla Spagnola in the Spanish style. So, he was actively recognizing that this is newfangled thing. And, and in culinary terms, this is like the day before yesterday. If you look at things like, I don't know, sesame snaps, which have been around for 6,000 years, and, lentil soup, which has been around, they've found actual remnants of lentil soup from the Neolithic period preserved in caves. This is like flat peaches,
And this is not specific to the Mediterranean at all. We think of Indian food as being incredibly full of chili. And of course, chili peppers originated in the Americas. And it was only when the Portuguese explorers brought them to India in the 16th century that Indian cuisine will have become very hot, spicy.
Like lemon is a new, relatively new import for Europe. Imagine Mediterranean seafood dishes without lemon. They used to use a thing called verjuice, which is the juice of unripe grapes for acidity. Not exactly. It's kind of is slightly more complicated and closer to a lemony taste. It's sort of lighter, and it's more antiseptic, which is the whole point of lemons with seafood. Aubergine is new. Potato is new. Basil only came in the 15th century. Corn and rice were not widely cultivated in Italy until very, very recently. And yet, if you mess with a single element or process of making risotto or polenta, there will be civil war. because it's not Italian. I mean, Italy as a unified concept didn't exist until relatively recently. It was a series of city principates. So people just get unnecessarily het up about this stuff when the correct response is to say the recipe I like, or the one that is emotionally closest to me because it's how my nana made it, is this. And so I am attached to this recipe, instead of planting a flag on a dish that really is always developing. Like most of this stuff people get annoyed about.
And fusion anything is wonderful. If we are pluralists who believe in the freedom of movement of people and ideas and products, then surely we embrace fusion food and the blending of culture, whether that is agriculture, horticulture, or standard culture.
I guess so. Not all fusion works, I have to say. I have seen some quite ludicrous concepts that you look at it and you think, this was devised by someone that doesn't have a cook's brain.
Just because you can does not mean you should.
No, but also, the good cooks, in my view, and I think you are in that group because we've talked about this before, are people who can kind of, in a way, visualize the taste of something combined with something else before they actually do it, whether it will go. You have an understanding, a precognition about, if I don't have X ingredient, what can I use instead?
Yeah.
Because it has maybe the same qualities or physical properties or taste profile.
Or texture.
And I know that there are a lot of people who don't have that brain, who, will message me and say, I don't have any, onion. Is it okay to use garlic? And it's like, what? In the same amount? I mean, are you nuts? Then you'll just be eating garlic.
But if you wanted to use asafoetida, or hing, as it's called in Hindi, for those people who can't eat onion or who are Jain and choose not to eat onion, that is a very, very good substitute for the hint of onion flavor. And I would recommend that over garlic.
Oh, nice tip. My one to end the session is that I've become very, very fond of mace as a replacement for nutmeg. Nutmeg still belongs in some things, but I find it overwhelms other things, such as a very sort of nice plain bechamel sauce. I will prefer a pinch of mace in it for that same taste without kind of overwhelming everything. So I use a lot of mace.
Quiet riot.
Okay, I'm hungry now. I'm genuinely hungry now. You might be able to hear it. I'm actually salivating now. So let's go get some breakfast. Listeners, thank you as ever for sharing your Sunday morning with us. It is so special that you do that. Now go, head out to the sunshine and bask in the glory of your own brilliance.
Though not before you signed up to back us on Ko-Fi at ko-fi.com/Quiet Riot Pod. We're going to be back on Thursday with another bumper show. So until then, have a great week.
We love you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Quiet Riot is an audio production by Cooler Heads with Naomi Smith and Andreou. Produced by Kenny Campbell. Music by Mariana Sangeeta. Artwork by Simona Canelu. And edited by me, Alex Reese. Quiet Riot is a co-production with Sandstone Global.
Quiet Riot.